All right, everyone. We are live with Dr. Ruth Roberts. Thank you for joining us today. We hope that you will enjoy our conversation. Dr. Ruth is one of our amazing partners at the Feed Real Summit, and we are welcoming her in this live event to talk about her holistic pet health coach program. First of all, Dr. Ruth, if you don't know, she's a trailblazer in the holistic pet health and creator of the original CrockPet Diet. With over 30 years of integrative veterinary medicine, she's helped thousands of pets overcome things like chronic kidney disease, GI issues, allergies, even cancer through natural balanced healing. And she continues her mission by training a generation of wellness advocates through her holistic pet health coach certification program. And that's what we're going to talk to her about today. And if you have any questions, please put them in there in the chat. Dr. Ruth, I'm going to let you do a little bit more introduction on how you got to this space, going from conventional veterinary medicine to what you're doing now. And let's just talk about your program.
Okay, thank you so much. And for everybody listening, thanks so much for jumping on. There's like almost every doctor that becomes a better doctor. I got sick and I had been diagnosed with IBS and fibromyalgia in 2006. Was super fortunate to find a functional medicine doctor in the town I was living in. And and I knew that that was the route to go, because what I was seeing with my clients that had fibromyalgia is that really nice people were being turned into junkies, because it was, this was relatively new in our understanding of what fibromyalgia is. And I knew I did not want to go down that path. So, fast forward through a lot of hard work and a lot of transition, lo and behold, eating the standard American diet was not a good plan, and that was indeed what was creating most of the symptomatology I was experiencing, all of the pain from the fibromyalgia, all of the IBS. And so with Dr. Craig, I went through food testing, I went through treatment for parasites, getting my thyroid regulated, changing my diet based on food sensitivity testing, and honestly, resting and learning how to do that better, learning how to do gentle exercise. And over 6 months, I went from being morbidly obese to still being overweight, but having dropped at least 20 pounds. The IBS symptoms were gone. The fibromyalgia symptoms were much better. And so I had a plan to move forward. And in this process, I was learning traditional Chinese veterinary medicine. And I'm thinking to myself, why am I not doing these things for dogs and for cats? And in that period of time, my heart dog at the time, Nepenthe, we called her Pumpkin, developed bacterial endocarditis. And that is something, Kay, you know that is like, ooh, this is a bad thing to hear, because literally it is an infection in a heart valve. And typically most of these dogs don't do well. Many of them die. And so for Pumpkin, we'd gotten her stabilized. I was using conventional medicine because it's an infection, a lot of antibiotics. And she was stable, but not well. And from a conventional perspective, there really wasn't a path back to wellness through using those techniques. So I took her down with me to the Chi Institute, now the Chi University, and talked to my professors, and they gave me a list of acupoints to use, several herbal formulas to use. And Dr. Roger Clemens looked at me and said, "You have to start cooking." And I'm like, what? And so he gave me some basic recipes, which included heart, right? Because like feeds like. Pumpkin was not having the acupuncture needles. She thought the herbal formulas were okay, but she thought the food was an exceptional idea. And so literally over the next 3 months, I watched as this 0.5 centimeter lesion on her heart valve disappeared down to 3 millimeters on ultrasound. And that's not supposed to happen either. So between my own lessons in healing and healing my dog with food, with herbs, this is what started me down the path into fully being an integrative veterinarian. And actually, that's where the original CrockPet diet came from, was that early recipe for pumpkin that got um, added on and updated until until its present state today.
Wow, that touches my heart. I lost a dog to bacterial endocarditis
Yeah.
back in the mid 80s. She had a PDA when she was born, patent
Mhm.
ductus arteriosus, and it took them 4 surgeries at Purdue to correct it because they kept having complications. And he told me that he didn't think she'd live very long. She died at the age of 4 with a really severe bacterial endocarditis that we could not get under control. So that speaks to me. And she was
It
such an amazing pup.
Oh, I didn't realize that, Kay. It is one of the more heartbreaking diseases
Yeah,
to see.
it was devastating to me. Whew. So yeah, I think back, if I only would have known that way back then. But I truly believe that my little heart dog that I have now is her little reincarnate. The bond that we have is so similar. It's amazing.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So
So
can you explain how you work with your students and create these holistic pet health coaches and what it's doing for the veterinary community?
right on. And so that's it, is that this knowledge is there's some knowledge that only veterinarians can carry out, right? And in terms of diagnosis and that sort of
Mhm.
stuff. But ultimately, there is a lack of communication from the veterinarian to the pet parent. And my goal with creating the Holistic Pet Health Coach coaching program was to create a group of people that had the knowledge to understand what the veterinarian had diagnosed. And ultimately, they still have me for coaching calls on Monday. So if they're like, Doc, what the heck is this? We can work through this together.
Mhm.
But what they're able to do for pet parents is to teach them about lifestyle modification, adjusting the diet, exercise, mindfulness. So, mostly mindfulness for the pet parent, but that parlays into the pet having so much more relaxed energy around them. And then looking at appropriate supplementation and how to really clean up the diet and the dog's life to remove as many toxins as possible going into the body, and then how to help the body get rid of them. And so in that process of the desire to create that partner in your pet's health, the program was born. And it was my goal to actually have it for veterinarians and veterinary technicians. And indeed, we do have vets and vet techs now in the program and graduated. But the idea was to give them information that would get them 80% of the results that I could get in a very short period of time,
Mhm.
and launch them into a holistic option for their pets, for their patients, really. So the course is approved for 40 continuing education hours for veterinarians and veterinary technicians, which is a lot. That's
Mhm.
like 2 years worth of credits. And Kay, you've gone through the course, and
Yeah,
it's a lot. So
it is a lot. And I wish I would have had access to it 20 years ago and gone that path before, I'm toward the end of my career. But anybody listening, I strongly recommend that you do this because it's just such an amazing course. I audited the course looking at it, from our perspective at Vedreal, and was so impressed with how it's laid out in all of the different organ systems and how you treat each type of disease, and just yeah, just generally the information that doesn't include pharmaceuticals. It's amazing.
right on. And that's the goal. And also give the students the ability to understand, what are the pharmaceuticals that all these guys are being put on. But that's the thing. I think that's where it's been such a nice match between what I'm doing and what you all are doing with the canine clinical nutrition certification, that's given the students such a big leg up to really be able to address nutrition from the foundation, plus all of the other things that nutrition won't quite cover. So it's a 16-week program. As Kay said, we start with looking at functional medicine concepts, traditional Chinese veterinary medicine concepts, which is a brain buster for sure if you're not accustomed to that. And then adding in and then just getting those general concepts and then starting to work through food as an option. So the original CrockPet diet, and then how do we help support healing the gut? And then going into each of the other organ systems that we see are so often impacted in our pets. And then applying each of those techniques in terms of functional medicine and traditional Chinese veterinary medicine, and adjusting the nutrition to suit that pet. So it's a very intense 16 weeks. We have mentors for each of the students so that if you've got questions, you can't quite understand something, the mentor has your back during the office hours. I do weekly coaching calls every Monday for students. So, it's a ball because people will come on with dogs and cats that they're trying to support. And it's like, holy smokes. I mean, the cases that the coaches are dealing with, it's like many of them would have made me curl my toes in my brick and mortar practice. So that's how frustrating access to veterinary care is right now, and unfortunately how poor the quality of care is in many cases. And I think that's not intentional from the veterinarians. It's that they are on this track where they've got to be in and out of a exam room in 10 to 12 minutes. And that just, you can't do a patient, you cannot support a patient with chronic health issues in 10 to 12 minutes.
I guess that brings me to the one question we have on here is, so what exactly is the difference between a traditional vet consult and a consult with one of your health coaches?
So the coaches do not diagnose, treat, or prescribe. What they are attempting to do is to help you support your pet in ways that the vet can't offer you. Because where veterinary medicine excels is in that emergency situation. But then the long-term support of rebuilding the support the body needs in terms of nutrition, microbiome, et cetera, that's what's not being addressed in conventional medicine. So they are there to be your liaison with your vet to help you ask better questions when you do need to go to the office, and to help you really work on how can we improve your pet's quality of life using simple natural modalities.
Well, I think you've said it a couple of times, your pet. I think that's what I'm hearing. This is very individualized, whereas in a veterinary clinic, they have very set standard of care protocols. Is that something that sounds correct?
That's absolutely it. Because, I mean, I think President Obama was trying to get the country moving forward into personalized medicine. However many years that's been now, 8 years. And 9, 10, who knows? But it takes, to be able to deliver that type of care, it takes really understanding the entire history of the pet. And so many times what's happening is coaches are going through the medical records for an animal, and they're like, oh gosh, well, this dog had Giardia at 8 weeks of age and was treated with 3 or 4 rounds of metronidazole, and then vaccinated, and then spayed and neutered, and then the ear infection started, and then the skin infections, and then the GI disease. So that's what they're doing, is like, for many pet parents, we get so lost in the litany of symptoms that our pets have experienced that we can't see the whole picture. And so this is part of what a coach can do, is help back you up to the beginning and help you see, oh, that 6 weeks of metronidazole may have been what kicked off all of these other health problems you're now dealing with, right? So that's the deal. They're there to help you work through a problem, and as you know, so we make a plan, and sometimes the plan works amazingly, and sometimes we hit a roadblock. They're there to help you pivot when that roadblock pops up.
Mhm. Yeah, I remember way back being in practice back in the 80s, and dogs would come in with skin issues, and the answer was to keep them on antibiotics for 6 months. And I look at that now and I think, these poor dogs, no wonder they were such a mess. And what we know now, and or what I know now, it really it amazes me. How-
It's heartbreaking, right? And I'm guilty. Like, I followed the party line for a good 15 years of my career, and I mean, finally, it's like I literally woke up one January 1st thinking to myself, "I'm really nothing more than a shill for the drug companies, and I have got to change because the dogs and the cats are not well, and
yeah.
they're not getting better."
So how do people find your coaches?
They're on social media themselves. You can come to the website, drruthroberts.com, and click on Find a Coach. We're in process of updating that page and making it a little bit more fun in terms of making it a quiz. Like, what do you need help with? Do you have a dog? Do you have a cat? Do you have other animals? And then, what do you need help supporting? And then pairing you with 3 to 4 coaches so that you can make a little more narrowed choice on where to start.
Because most of this would be online, right? Not in person.
That's right, but we do have, several coaches that do appointments in their hometowns. We actually have, a couple of coaches working with veterinarians
Mm,
because they saw the need for that patient educator to come into their practice.
yes. I think that's one of my dreams for the CPCNs too, is to be working directly in the clinics, because then I think you're not going to have as much resistance from the veterinarians if they're within your practice, and you
Right
all know
on.
what you all know what you're talking about. You all know the talking points that you are going over, and there's nobody worried about that you're stepping on my toes or you're overstepping your boundaries of not diagnosing and prognosing and that kind of thing. And so that, I think, is so key, is if we can get them all working together. That's my big push.
Amen. Yeah, and I think that's it because veterinarians are seeing that things aren't working,
Mhm.
but they don't know what to do next, and I think that's part of what your, efforts in education have been around is like, "No, really, these folks they're here to help you help pets more."
Right.
Uh, and so I think that's it, is that the desire for something different, but the lack of time to learn how to do it is a real problem for veterinary medicine.
I agree, and I think with the veterinarians that I've spoken to recently, they're finally admitting that yes, they don't have time to learn this, and wow, there is a way that maybe I can get my technician trained in talking about fresh diets and how to help people make them correctly for their dogs. And in your case, going through some of these case studies and working together and helping each other. It's not, we're trying to take over a portion
Mm-mm.
of veterinary medicine. We're trying to help. And the lack of veterinarians, the numbers, that I've seen recently, there's just no way they can do all that. And
No,
so,
no.
you know,
And that's the frightening thing. So Mars commissioned the study. I think this is what you're talking about, looking at the veterinary care shortage in the
mhm,
United States. And their estimate is that by 2030, which is not very far away, we will be 24,000 small animal veterinarians short.
mhm,
And the current estimates is that we're at about 12,000 short. So it's uncomfortable and bad now,
yeah,
but oh my gosh. I mean, this is what veterinary medicine has got to learn to do, is to leverage educated individuals to do the things that the veterinarian does not need to do, and frankly, that the veterinary technician doesn't need to do, because vet techs are needed to do anesthesia, um, all of these things that nurses would do in a hospital,
Right.
and that's where the veterinary assistants and then specifically trained individuals can make a massive difference in taking pressure off of the professionally licensed staff.
Hmm. I agree. So one of the areas we've talked about a little bit, and we can touch on a little more, is nutrition. And I think that's one of the things that your group coaches on a lot. And obviously that's what we do. Why is it so important?
If Well, let's see. If you eat Doritos and Power Bars on a regular basis, and that will give you enough calories and sort of the basic building blocks in terms of macronutrients, protein, carbohydrate, fat, but are you gonna be really well? And so the corollary, is that kibble at its worst, if we take the example of Beneful, is basically, Doritos with a little chicken flavoring added in there and some other God only knows what. And so that's the thing, it will keep the animal alive, but it's not going to allow it to thrive.
Right.
And, so that concept's pretty simple, but more importantly, what we're not doing is feeding the microbiome appropriately.
Mhm.
And we have to feed ourselves, but if we don't feed these guys well, our immune system doesn't function well, our neurotransmitters don't work well. There is astronomical amounts of inflammation through the body because the gut is unable to process things efficiently. And so we're showing food and God only knows what else to the immune system, which
Mm.
then creates a massive reaction. So I think that's where we're starting to really dial back nutrition and beyond looking at macronutrients and oh feed the rainbow, looking at giving ourselves and our dogs and our cats optimal nutrition for each species, but also making sure that we're optimizing the nutrients that go in for the microbiome.
And also for the mitochondria. And I think that's
Yes.
something I've been reading about a lot too. If we're not giving the mitochondria the right food, we're setting the body up for failure too. So,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's that's all that fibromyalgia is, right? Is mitochondrial dysfunction
mhm,
because either there has been inappropriate uh, nutrients provided to the body or the detoxification processes have stopped. And so the garbage that's in the cell is unable to come out. The mitochondria are now toxic and they are unable to produce energy for that
mhm.
cell. The cell dies and releases all this nasty stuff into the system.
Yeah. And so I think people, we've always heard you are what you eat, and it really is true. If you look at it on the cellular level and beyond just what's on that pretty bag and that Beneful package. That Beneful package looks like a really good meal for your dog.
It does. It's excellent marketing.
Oh, it's amazing, the marketing that they have.
Yeah.
Um, so can you walk us through the process of how you would personalize a feeding plan for a dog or a cat?
Sure. So there's a couple of ways. It begins with how severe are the problems that this dog or cat is having, and how long have they been there? So for a young animal that is relatively healthy, that's a whole lot easier. And what we would do then is look at how active is the animal, how much, what are their genetic predispositions, and that sort of stuff, and then optimize based on well, this dog is a couch potato, so we're going to really focus on animal proteins and vegetables and not much in the way of fat. And for me, because I teach cooked diets and will include grains and beans, we may leave those things out because one of the most important factors in health is maintaining a healthy body weight as well as muscling.
Mhm,
And then for a dog that's had more serious health problems for a long period of time, one of the things that we like to use is Glacier Peak's pet wellness scan
mhm,
because it's a simple at-home test. You get great information about potential food sensitivities, and then the coaches will use that information to design what we call a rotation and elimination diet. And essentially, what we're doing is taking out any foods that could potentially be creating sensitivities, and also the foods that you, the pet parent, know, like chicken is a disaster for Bettina, so we just don't do chicken. Um, and then using that rotation and elimination diet every 24 hours, there'll be a different set of food, and doing that for somewhere between 3 to 6 weeks until symptomatology resolves, and then starting to reintroduce foods that may be useful. So, for instance, many animals will show up with a sensitivity to both culinary mushrooms and some of the functional mushrooms. And so after 6 weeks, we then reintroduce. Is this okay for this dog now? Yes, we're good. So that's kind of the idea, is what can we do to help heal the gut so that it stops reacting to food, and then help make sure that the dog is getting everything it needs.
So we had a question that came through that says, what do you recommend for an 18-month-old with CDK from acute kidney injury and now pancreatitis? Melissa, you didn't say if it was a dog or cat. I'm assuming dog, but I don't know.
Could be. So, because they often will get into things. I mean, I think you've probably seen that scariness with the antifreeze and whatnot. So it just depends, and it depends on how severely impacted the kidney function is. Some of these guys will start to heal and get back to pretty close to normal numbers, and some of them stay at really horrifying numbers. So for most of these guys, we're going to always recommend high quality, highly digestible, real animal protein. And then based on where the phosphorus level is, we may scale the protein back slightly if we're unable to control it with phosphate binders and other methods. And then if there is pancreatitis involved as well, it sounds like there's a great deal of inflammation in the GI tract. And sadly, if your dog, theoretically, this dog has been on some of the prescription diets, that actually may be part of what's creating the pancreatitis, because of the highly processed starch. So this is where you need help. You need help from a coach to help you figure out what all of the moving pieces are, and figure out the best approach to help your dog without creating more issues.
It'd be a very step-by-step approach where you'd have to, patiently try this. And then if that doesn't work, you try it, you go to the next step.
Exactly. And that's a food transition that might, for a healthy dog would take a week. This may take a month for this dog because of all the complications that are going on.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, you brought that antifreeze one up. Oh, that was a horrible thing to see with dogs. I remember a litter of Doberman puppies coming in.
Oh.
And they all passed. We didn't save any of them. And it was one of those, situations that wasn't ideal anyway. There were 2 blues in the group, and you knew genetically they were a mess anyway. And but it was heartbreaking to see all these puppies die. And, the owners were just had no idea. Why would they? What do you mean they drink antifreeze? Why would they drink antifreeze? It's brightly colored and it's sweet. So another question we had is, why isn't a one-size-fit-all feeding approach enough for pets? And why is customization so important? We touched on this a little bit, but we can.
Yeah, I think because the same for us. That's why there's so many different diet options, because one does not work for everyone, and you may experience different needs throughout your life. So for instance, when I was about 50, I started doing keto diet because it really helped me drop weight. I was doing bodybuilding at the time, and about 8 to 10 years in, I realized that I couldn't digest the fat anymore. Right. So this is the thing. And there's a lot of information now about keto diet negatively impacting the microbiome and becoming a toxin in there. So the same thing for dogs. As a puppy, you may be doing everything you can to get enough calories in the dog to keep it well muscled and happy and active. But that same dog, when it's spayed and neutered, for instance, all of a sudden the caloric demands drop
Mhm.
by 30 to 50%. So, do you want to fill those caloric demands with Fritos, or do you want to fill them with real nutrients? And so that's where the customization becomes so critical. And especially when we're dealing with pets that have sensitivities to food,
Mhm.
it can be really difficult. I mean, we've seen sensitivity tests come back with literally everything is
Mhm.
highlighted red, and the dog is actually reacting to everything. And so, for a short period of time, I've had coaches that will start dogs on lentil diets
Mhm.
because oddly, that was the one thing that wasn't creating an issue, just to let things calm down and then figuring out, okay, what can we do to create more balance and more diversity within the diet?
Yeah. That's one of the things that when we're doing our workshops and, talking with our CPCN people and with the dog owners is always I stress and stress and stress. You're feeding the dog in front of you, and you're feeding the dog in front of you today. Like you said, tomorrow, a year from now, it may not work. My dog gets all raw right now, but she's only 2. When she's 10, that may change, and I need to start gently cooking. And so just keeping an eye on your dog and watching, all the observations we can do, and these other tests that we can run. I think it's amazing what we have that we can use now. It's exciting, but people need to be educated on it. It's still hard to grasp all the concepts if it's new to you. I'm still learning every single day. I've been in this space for about 4 years, and it's amazing. Um, So there are so many supplements out there. There's so many options of kibble and raw and, just everything. How do your coaches simplify things? Like, what is it? How do they sit parents down and say, this is what
Mm,
we need to look at?
right on. So, I mean, and this is the frustrating thing, right? Because pet parents are like, I can't figure this out. So I'm trying this and this and this and this because I'm not getting information. And um, often what they're doing is looking at the supplements that the dog is on and saying, "Hmm, did this help when you added it in? I don't
Mhm.
remember. How about this one? I don't know. How about this one? Yeah, that was really important." And so what they're doing is walking that pet parent backwards through the supplements they've chosen for the pet and cutting, uh, 75% of them in some
Mhm.
cases. And and then we can really see, okay, how is the dog doing off of all of this? And what do we need to adjust?
Mhm.
So I think that's one of the things that they're really good at is looking at all of the supplementations, all of the things that the pet parent is doing and helping them reset back to something very simple. And then if another supplement or something else is indicated, making it earn its way into that pet's protocol.
So basically supplementing for a purpose, not just because the marketing was so good and made it sound, oh, my dog has to have this kind of thing.
Right.
You know?
Well, and frankly too, I mean, the pet parents are really frustrated because,
Yeah.
for instance, let's take the diagnosis of kidney disease. You go to the vet, you get some blood work back. If your dog wasn't sick, oh, your dog's in stage 3 iris disease. Uh, there's really not much we can do right now. Take this bag of food, come back in 3 months, and let's see if it's worse. Well, that's gonna send a pet parent to the internet
Yeah.
immediately, and they're gonna see all these kidney kits and all of this stuff,
Mhm.
and based on the testimonials, they're gonna buy a bunch of stuff, and sadly, we've seen dogs on 17, 20 supplements because the pet parent's trying really hard to help
Mhm.
their pet, but not realizing that they're often duplicating some of the ingredients across
Mhm.
these kits.
We had another question come in that says, why does my dog with stage 2 kidney disease, chronic kidney disease, lose interest with commercially prepared kidney food? We've tried high or hills and also fresh food types like 9 and Line and Just Food for Dogs.
Well, this will shock you, but if you go to the website of the Hills Canine kidney diet, what you're going to see there is that it's mostly corn and cellulose, which is basically a filler derived from wood. Yeah, and it's in all of this stuff. And because it's reduced by 30% in terms of protein, it's pretty tasteless. So it's kind of like cardboard. All of the diets that are designed for dogs and cats for kidney disease are low in protein. And so there's 3 macronutrients, right? There's protein, fat, and carbohydrates. So if you drop protein and you don't want to increase fat, there's only one thing that can go up, and that's carbohydrates. So they are pretty tasteless. And literally, for some of the commercial foods with cellulose, they pretty much taste like cardboard. So that's a big reason. And what I would argue is that a dog with stage 2 chronic kidney disease doesn't need a protein-adjusted diet. What they need is more moisture in the food and a better set of quality nutrients to come in and nourish the body.
Well, and I think that's a huge thing that you just said, moisture. I think all these animals are chronically dehydrated.
Yes.
Because that's one of the things we notice when people are transitioning dogs, and especially cats. My daughter, I transitioned her 2 cats, and that was one of the first things she said, "Mom, they're not drinking any water." I'm like, they don't need to. It's all in their food now. And so they drink very little. They're outside cats in Texas, and they drink very little water because of how much they get in their food.
And that's species appropriate, right? They're supposed to consume the majority of their water through food. And also for us, honestly. I mean, the whole thing about 8 glasses of water a day was supposed to include the water that's in your food. So if you're not eating Doritos, you're good.
I'm so glad I don't like Doritos.
Yeah, it's just like evil incarnate.
Well, not have that kind of stuff. So, and that has been one of the myths, I think, that's been perpetuated in the veterinary field, that if they have any kind of kidney disease, you've got to cut back protein. And the research I've done, you need high quality protein, not cut back on it. Yeah.
And, ultimately then addressing all of the other underlying issues, which are dysbiosis and chronic inflammation and improving blood flow to the kidney and reducing deposition of advanced glycation end products on the kidney basement membrane. And so that's the thing, is that so many, like in my brick and mortar practice and even with my consulting clients, we kept animals either at stage 2 kidney disease or got the numbers back to normal and kept them there for 10 years. So this is right. It's a diagnosis, but it's kind of like a warning shot. And it's at a time period where it's not too late to make some changes to support the body more appropriately so that the kidneys can start functioning more normally.
I love that. I think you've touched on this, that you've had some really good success stories, and I'm so glad that you were able to show those, especially with your dog with the bacterial endocarditis. That really hit home for me. But looking ahead, how do you see the pet health coaches reshaping the future of pet wellness?
I think that if you have a trusted source and somebody that's going to go with you through the process, it's easier to go through it. So for instance, one of the things that the coaches deal with constantly are dogs with allergies, and they're on Apoquel or Cytopoint, and they're still having problems. And almost every coach has a success story where they've helped a client get that dog off of Apoquel. And is it going to happen in 2 weeks? Nope, it's not. It's going to take 8 to 12 months. And but that's the thing, is that in the United States, we want it to get better like that, and it just doesn't. You have to give the body time to heal itself.
Yes. I think that's a really good point, is that all natural healing does take time, and it's over time that the body adjusts and heals. And I always use my example of I started drinking green tea every day. That's what's in my cup here. I drink it cold because I don't like hot drinks. But after 3 years, I used to take allergy meds every single day of my life. After a few months, I was really backing down. And now I live in Middle Tennessee. The only time I have to take allergy meds is when 1 million dogwoods bloom at once overnight. there's like a 2-week period. And
Yes.
I wake up and I'm like, oh, the dogwoods have bloomed. And then I'm taking it maybe 3 or 4 times in the entire year. And so, but that's over time. And I'll tell people, and they're like, oh, I tried that last week. No, this is something I do religiously every single day. And it has built, I mean, I swear by it. So.
Right on. I mean, and we know there's benefits for ECG extract from green tea for dogs as well, in terms of anti-cancer properties. But I think that is so crucial, Kay. I mean, because we want it to all be better now.
Mm-hmm.
And, I told you the story of when I was sick. And what I didn't tell you is I said, okay, doc, how long is this going to take until I feel better? And he said 6 months. And I'm like,
yeah.
But I knew the other option was to go down the path of conventional medicine, take the non-steroidals, then they stop working, and then take the narcotics, and then be a junkie. And that's what I did not want. And that's what we don't want for our pets either.
Right.
We want them to be healthy, to not need these prescription meds, which can be life-saving and give us enough time to take another action that's better and will produce long-term health.
Yeah. Well, this has been great. We did have that same person that asked about the protein. She said, how much protein is appropriate for stage 2 chronic kidney disease?
For an adult dog, I would not change the protein level. Yeah. And yes, coaches, that's a big part of what they do, is create meal plans for pets with specific conditions. Right.
So it can be allergy conditions, chronic kidney disease, GI issues. They're going to work with you on all of those and help you choose the right type of feeding plan, not only for your dog, but for you. A lot of people, when we talk about creating our feed real meal plans, we meet everyone where they're at. We're not saying it's all or none. And that's where I feel like your coaches are the same way. They're like, let's see what you're comfortable with, what's going to be right for your dog. Right.
That's exactly it. Because it's hard to make that radical of a change abruptly, because it's, you're saying start with real food. I am as well. And if you are not cooking and that's not the habit that you're in, it takes adjustment to get there.
So great. All right. Well, I appreciate you being on. I think we're going to be on together again next month. I don't know which topic we'll be talking about then, but
something fun.
Something fun, always. And it's always so great to talk to you. I look so forward. I'm going to be at your event in September, and then you're going to be at ours in October.
Right on. Yeah. So for those of you in the Kansas City area, check out wholepetcon.com, September 13th. Really exciting. We're going to have so many cool people there speaking, including Rita Hogan and Jay and Adrian, the 2 crazy cat ladies.
Yeah. And then the Feed Real Summit is October 11th and 12th. And so, just some really great options for pet parents and veterinary professionals alike. So,
amen.
Well, thank you again, Ruth. As always, it's great to see you, and we'll be back.
Thanks much, Kay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.